Okay, welcome everyone. This is a presentation called Tips and Resources for Elementary School Families. My name is Lorna Gilmore, and I am part of the Issaquah School District Family Partnership Team. So our department lives in the Equity and Family Partnership team. Our district, our area is getting very diverse, and we are recognizing that we have many families who live in this area who may have been born in other countries or may have lived in other regions in the United States, or in general might not be familiar with the school system because it's been many years, or they went to private school, or the system was slightly different. And so we make sure that we provide such information so that you know how to navigate the school system, and lack of understanding of the school system is not a barrier to making sure that your child is successful in school. One of the first things I'm going to start out explaining is that school district versus school. So the Issaquah School District is comprised of 26 different schools. We have 16 elementary schools. So your children attend one of those elementary schools, 6 middle schools, and 3 high schools. And then we have a boutique high school called Gibson Eck. And the school district contracts with the state of Washington to support the Echo Glen Juvenile Center. Next, on our page, I want to make sure all of you note that there is a translate button. So if English is not your primary language, please use one of the other languages available. It's a Google Translate button, but we try to make sure that information is accessible. Also, teachers are making sure that they send information in formats that are accessible for families to translate in other languages. Next, my site, our department site, is Cultural and Family Partnership. So please go to Programs, Cultural and Family Partnership. And when you go there, you will note when I talk about parent events and such, they're available over here, information about what upcoming events. One of the things I'm also going to let you know as new families is on October 20th, we have a Family Connections question and answer session. So if this is too much information and you can't remember 50% of it or more, please come to one of those sessions and we can answer your questions. I'll also be talking about another information night in November called Tips and Resources for Parents and Parent-Teacher Conferences. But in general, we have many workshops and events to support families. In addition, I told you that I would be posting this slide deck and the video on our page. So it'll be under resources for families, and you will find them over here. You can see Susie has already entered all that information, so it'll be easily accessible when the videos are ready. But again, it's under Family Partnership Resources. So we have a lot of information here. So just note that that's an option when you are ready and when you want to see this video or see this slide deck. And finally, I just want to show you who I am. And as I said earlier, my name is Lorna Gilmore. I am a family partnership specialist in the Issaquah School District. I do most of the district-run events for our culturally and linguistically diverse families. All the schools also try to have events that are welcoming to our families. They'll do culture nights and family literacy nights and different events. And I supervise 3 liaisons, and these liaisons work at the 16 elementary schools, 6 middle schools, and the 3 high schools. So the purpose of today's presentation is to inform parents new to the U.S. public school system about navigating Issaquah schools, and to provide you with resources and where you can find answers and help with your future questions. One of the big feedback parents have given the district and to our department is the Issaquah School District has so much information, a lot of information on the website, a lot of information emailed, but it is sometimes information overload, and parents tend to sometimes get confused or not sure how to navigate some parts of it because they're unsure where to begin even. So this is hopefully a step for you as new families into our district to help you get a general orientation. And again, as I said, it might be information overload, so just kind of save some of this information and note that it is available. If you don't take anything else out of this presentation, note that resources are available People are available to help you. Take what you can. If you even get 5 or 10%, that's good enough for now. And you can get the rest of it slowly because there's a lot of things going on in the next few days. Family liaison. So each of the family liaisons is assigned per feeder pattern. So those of you who have children going to Clark, Issaquah Valley, Sunset, Liliana is most likely the person who will follow up with you. Wendy will follow up with families who are part of the Skyline feeder pattern, including Cascade Ridge, Cedar Trails, Challenger, Creekside, Discovery, Endeavor, and Sunny Hills. And Ina will follow up with families in the Liberty feeder pattern, such as Apollo, Briarwood, Cougar Ridge, Grand Ridge, Maple Hills, and Newcastle. If you have a middle school or high school in the school district, those liaisons also support those feeder patterns, middle and high school. So most likely they can answer your questions for you for your older children also. So a school district is for all students who live within that attendance boundaries. All students within that area are legally have the right to go to school. So no student can be turned away. So sometimes parents are concerned that they might be rejected from kindergarten, or they will be rejected from entering the middle school. No, every single one of your kids, once they go from kindergarten to 5th grade, in 5th grade, they're automatically going to be transferred to the middle school of their area. And in middle school, they will automatically, every single one of our students in our district has the ability to go to one of our amazing high schools and access any of the classes in those high schools. And we'll talk a little bit later about self-select for the middle and high school classes. So this is an amazing opportunity. Public education, all students within our boundaries are welcome to all of our schools based on age, and also, again, main thing is where you live. And saying that, however, if you move at any time during the school year, your child will know, and your child no longer lives within that school's boundaries, you will be asked to withdraw and move your child to the other school where you are now living at. So even if it happens in the middle of the year, so you start the school, decide you want to move to an apartment in October, buy a new house in October, move somehow, next month, you will still be asked to leave, because it is not till the end of the year. Many of our schools, that's just part of our policy. Parents can apply for an exemption, and you can talk to the school about what an exemption is to get more information about that, if you move and you still want to keep your child at that school. We talked about feeder patterns, so this is kind of just a visual, and there's a link on here. I'm not going to go too much into it, but just note that it has that. This slide also talks a little bit more about SAGE and Marlin, which is a highly capable programs, and also about SciTech program at specific schools. And I'm not going to talk more about that because it's really, I'm focusing on tips for the start of the school year. However, if we have time, I can answer some of those questions at the end of the presentation, but I would recommend that we save those kinds of questions for the Family Connections event in October. A classroom environment. Many families are unfamiliar with our classroom environment. The good news is you will be able to see your child's classroom coming up on August 29th. If you attend the Meet the Teacher, I would strongly recommend that you attend that event. It is a great way for families who don't really have a visual image of what a classroom in the US looks like, or the area looks like, so that you can kind of see what that looks like, what the learning environment will look like. There's a lot of whole group learning spaces. There are small group spaces. And then in addition, your child will be seated in spaces for whole group instruction at desks. So there are multiple spaces in the classroom for students to learn, depending on what the teacher and the class is doing. So we don't always do whole class instruction. Sometimes we do small group instructions, and sometimes they have carpet time, or I'm not sure they'll do carpet time because they didn't do much of it during COVID, but time for them to do reading or whole group instruction. Very often teachers will work with students on a one-on-one or small group basis, and they work on that groups based on the diagnostics the students have taken, such as the iReady test. We'll talk more about that later, or you'll learn more about it at curriculum night. And sometimes students have choice as to what activity they will be doing, since the teacher is working with some groups, and then the teacher will give the other students options as to what they can do while she or he is working with a small group. The district calendar. The district calendar, if you're new to the area, will be new to you. So make sure you're looking at the district calendar to start off. Second, make sure you go to the upcoming events page on your school's website, or that you are reading your emails from the school that always list upcoming events. I just want to note, because this is not part of the norm, that there will be no school on October 24th, 27th, and 17th. The 24th and 27th are teacher work days. It's mandatory training for teacher days. March 17th is a built-in school day, built-in snow makeup day. And the last day of school is June 20th. There are also 2 additional no school days just for elementary school students, and we will talk more about that soon. I would recommend that if you are doing some vacation, just students really in elementary school, they're not really responsible for many missed work, but it's always preferred to schedule appointments and vacation while students are on break, like dentist appointment, doctor appointments, because we're trying to minimize disturbance and students missing any classwork as much as possible, so that we don't want to disrupt their learning. The district calendar looks like this. It is available on the district website, which is taking a long time to download for some reason. There we go. And when I met my husband and we had children, my husband immediately bookmarked this page. It's a great page to have bookmarked, so you can easily see it. You should also, if you want, print it out. Many years ago, we used to have lots of things on our refrigerator. This is one of the things to have on your refrigerator, so you can see clearly the no school days. Also, as I said, there are 2 more days for elementary school, and that is November 30th and December 1st, which is elementary school conferences, where there's no school. And so you'll have to have your children at home. And that's the week after Thanksgiving. And more information about conferences at a later slide. So the first thing coming up for you is on Monday will be the August 29th at all elementary schools for all students in kindergarten through 5th grade. And both for this event, unlike the curriculum night and parent-teacher conferences, students are invited to this event. It is an amazing opportunity to meet your child's classroom teacher. It's a fun environment. Students usually go in, and all the school supplies they've brought, instead of having to carry it on the school bus or with them into the building on Tuesday, the parent can help them take all the supplies in. You can drop it off at their desk. Sometimes the teachers will have some bin or container to put that in, but usually you can drop it off at their desk, and then the students and the teacher will work on it when school starts on Tuesday. So look for a time, the specific time on the school's website, or look for an email. I just got my daughter's email today, but there were a couple of emails in previous weeks to remind me about the Meet the Teacher event. It's usually based on either your last name or the grade level, because depending on the size of the school, they cannot accommodate all the families in the parking lot at the same time. So depending on the size of the school, they might divide it into smaller groups. So look for that information. It is an amazing opportunity, not just to say hi to the teacher. It's a very brief time to just meet the teacher, but also to look at the classroom. The teachers have decorated and really welcomed you, created a welcoming space for your child, so you can have an opportunity to see what it looks like. But it's also a great time to see other kids who might be in that class and just say hi or meet some other parents who are in that class. So in elementary school, this was a great time for me to help me connect as a parent with the other children in the school district, other students in the class of my children. By the way, I have been working in the Issaquah School District for 22 years. My first 15 years, I was a middle school teacher, science teacher, and then I became a dean of students for several years, and I was a dean of students at an elementary school. But one of the more important things for me to share with you is I am a parent in an elementary school. My older daughter will be starting high school this year, so I went through her kindergarten through fifth grade, and then my younger daughter will still be in fifth grade at Sunset Elementary. One of the reasons I love this presentation is because I did not grow up in this country. I moved to this country when I was 10, and I never attended an elementary school in this country. Kindergarten through fifth grade, I did not attend in this country. So I was really unfamiliar with elementary school when my children started. And so I hope that I am helping other parents who, like me, did not experience elementary school in the United States themselves. And so it was all unfamiliar to them. And so sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming since it's so different. So next one is parent-teacher conferences. Now, for kindergarten parents in this group, please note, if you're a kindergarten parent in this group, you have a meeting. It's called just a teacher meeting, parent meeting with the teacher. There's a day schedule between the 30th and the 1st. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please make sure if you're a kindergarten parent only that you contact your child's teacher and talk to them about when you will have a meeting, when they can schedule a meeting with you.
I didn't even know how to put it in the battery.
And then for all families, kindergarten to fifth grade, you will have a parent-teacher conference on November 30th and December 1st. Now, it's not 2 days. You have 1 day conference. So your conference is going to be sometime between that period. There's no school on those 2 days. Students usually don't attend the conference. If the student is a fourth or fifth grader, sometimes they do something called student-led conference. So you may want to check with the school to see if they're invited. It is really the only time during the course of the year that the families have a specific time to meet with the teacher to talk about the child's progress. For example, meet the teacher is not the appropriate time to talk to the child's teacher about your child's progress or details about it. So the conference time and the sign up usually for those 2 dates starts in late October, early November usually. And we will be having an event to help those families familiar with the system to talk so we can help prepare them and give them some tips to make the most out of that conference time. It's only a 20-minute conference time. If you're an English language learner and you need an interpreter, that conference time can be extended. Now, also for you to note that just because it's the one time the district has scheduled to have a formal conference period, it doesn't mean that you cannot ask your teacher to have a meeting with them, email them, or have a phone call with them. So communication is always encouraged between parents and teachers. So many of you wanted to know about your child's daily schedule. Your teacher will definitely be sharing some more information regarding the daily schedule. The teachers every day, they write the child's daily schedule on their board. But in general, what you need to know is every day, except for Wednesday, but on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, your child will have 2 recesses. They'll have a lunch period, and then they will have something known as a specialist class. We'll talk more about what a specialist class in a second. On Wednesdays, I hope all of you know that school is an early release. So while most schools start around 9:15, the school will be dismissed around 1:30, 1:35. There's sometimes some schools have a slight variation. So please check your child's school to find out the exact start of the bell time for start and end of the day. But note that Wednesday in general, it's around 1:30, 1:35-ish, depending on the school. And usually because Wednesday is a early release day, the students usually only have 1 recess. Okay, so you can note that over here, the second recesses over here are all after 2 o'clock. So those students would not have the second recess on Wednesdays. Kindergartners, in addition, have some time during the course of the day called purposeful playtime, and that's part of the state requirement to really make sure that there is the purposeful play, and it's the teachers plan the kind of activities that will encourage critical thinking for our students. Now, the specialist. So what is a specialist? When my daughter first came home and she was talking about the recess teacher and specialist, despite the fact that I taught 6th through 12th grade at middle schools and high schools in the United States, I had no idea what she meant, because in my mind, a specialist teacher was someone different. But elementary school, they called specialist teacher the music teacher, the PE teacher, and the library teacher. If your child is in MLL, ELL program, or if they are provided resources in the Title I program, 2 other programs that they may be invited to, depending on if they qualify for certain needs, or if they are in the Learning Resource Center, if they have special needs or an IEP, then they might also have other teachers. But in general, they have the main teacher, and then they have some other teachers, but all students have a main teacher and then 3 specialist teachers, the music, the PE, and the library teachers. Now, once a day for about 30 minutes, all of the kids will go to that specialist teacher. The teacher lines the students up, walks them to the specialist teacher. The specialist teacher works with them, have them line up. The teacher goes to that room and to collect them and walks them in that line back to their classroom. When you look at your teacher's schedule, note which day is the PE day. On the PE day, double check that your child is wearing tennis shoes. So my child, in the summer, sometimes she wanted to wear different shoes or galoshes or rain boots. Even if it's raining, I would recommend that she wear her or take her tennis shoes just so that she has them for PE. Otherwise, it's really hard to play and do stuff in the either the school gym or in the MPR room, which is a multi-purpose room. It's a big open space room where the students have lunch in elementary schools. But to do that there, if they're wearing certain type of shoes. So just be mindful of what kind of shoes your child has on the day they have PE. Now, the other type of adult your child might be around, and that person is called a paraprofessional. Paraprofessional, my children usually refer to them as a lunch teacher or the recess teacher. So when your children are at recess or when they're in the lunchroom, they're always supervised. So the people who are supervising them are the paraprofessionals. Paraprofessionals are ISD employees. They are trained and they support our students at the playground. They're watching them, making sure they're safe, answering any questions, helping them resolve any conflict if there is any. Because sometimes kids, when they are playing, they might disagree. In the lunchroom, they're making sure all the line is going smoothly. The students are able to collect a lunch. The students are seated at lunch, have their lunch bags, and so forth. And so that is the paraprofessional, also sometimes referred by a child as a recess teacher or the lunch teacher. And they sometimes will also do specialized instructions with small group of students. If your child is either in the resource room or for other, sometimes in kindergarten, paraprofessional works with small groups of students, because in kindergarten, the teacher is working a lot and the students have a lot of questions sometimes. And there's just more supervision needed because it's a kindergarten class. So just note who a paraprofessional is. School website. Is there a reason for being specific about tennis shoes? What about regular running shoes? Yes, regular running shoes are fine. I'm just saying, making sure that they wear something that is provided, is appropriate for doing PE activities. Okay, and the teacher assignment will be posted in Family Access. So you will find out tomorrow what teacher your child has by visiting Family Access. And there will be a tab for, you can look under student profile and you'll be able to look at that tomorrow. Okay, and then let's see. Next one. When you go to the school's website, also note that you also have a link to something called Clever, and let me show you where that is. So the school's website. So I'm going to start over here. So we'll choose a random school. Let's go Briarwood. Every single school's website looks pretty much the same. They might have a different picture on it. So over here, it says, good, it answers your question. Class assignments will be available in family access starting at 4 o'clock tomorrow. And you can go on the tab for your child's profile. You will see one of the tab. I don't know if it'll say class assignments, but look at the tabs and see which tab it's at. I can't quite remember which tab it falls under. But if you are looking under portals, you'll see a portal that says Clever. And if your child is at home and wants to access their Clever account, they can go here. But the website, it takes them to the district website. Again, going back to the school's website. So the school's website, if you scroll down, you'll see upcoming events. Here, you can see it posts the time of Meet the Teacher, what time Meet the Teachers, first day of school. Note, it's only first day of school for 1st through 5th grade, and first day of school for elementary school students is on September 1st. It'll also give you the curriculum night. Curriculum nights are usually sometime in September. So look at the school's website. And this one, I say September, this one's August 30th, second day of school. So anytime between August 30th and sometime later in September, you will find that your teacher, your school will be doing a curriculum night. That's a really important date to attend, event to attend. What does recess look like? So again, the lining up comes into play. When it's time for recess, teachers line up the class and the whole class walks together to the playground, and they will review playground rules and procedures for child safety and just so that they're interacting appropriately with each other that first week of school. And the school and the teacher reviews playground rules often. The recess of paraprofessional, the recess teacher, as they're called often, monitors and supervises the students during the recess time. There is a bell that rings, and when there are usually 2 bells, but when the first bell rings, the students stop playing, and then they start lining up, and then they all line up. The teachers meet them by the door where they're asked to meet the teacher, and then the teacher will escort them back to class. The classrooms, the teachers do a lot of practice with their students to show them and teach them how to line up so that they're lining up quietly with their hands next to each other. So as the students are walking through the classroom to the specialist class, to the recess playground, or during lunch, as they're passing other classrooms, they're not being a disturbance to the other teachers and classrooms as they walk by. What does lunch look like at school? Students, when they come in the morning, they will usually drop their lunch bag in a cart. So all teachers usually have one of those big student carts. Costco sells them, a lot of Amazon, everyone sells them, but they have the big heavy duty wheels. They put their lunches in that cart. If the lunch is, sometimes they will drop their lunch right in the container right before lunch, and older kids usually are a student. Sometimes they'll choose a student to take the cart to the lunch room and drop it there. And so at lunch times, very often they have recess and then lunch. Sometimes it's lunch and then recess. So whichever it is in that schoolroom, when they come to the lunchroom, they'll probably put disinfectant or wash their hands, but then they will grab their lunch bag and they will sit at the counter to eat their lunch. And they sit at a counter with their classroom, and usually the teachers give them an assigned seat for the lunch. The lunch bag will be placed in a cart. And as I said, someone will walk down with it. The teacher or specialist teacher will walk them to lunch, and students do not walk around the hallway unsupervised unless they're going to the bathroom during class time or lunchtime. A parent asks, can my student request to stay in the classroom during recess if they're not feeling good? So it's going to depend on the teacher. One of the things of recess and lunch is that that's the teacher's free time, planning time, and her break time, her lunch time. So usually we would prefer not to have them stay in the classroom because that was going to infringe on the teacher's ability to do other work, to get a break and so forth. So if they're not feeling well in general, that means that they should be going home, or they should be going to the nurse's office, to get their rest over there. Yes, so let's talk about water in my next slide. So we'll wait for that for a second. So this year, lunch is not free. In the past year and a half, lunch has been free. So this year, lunch will cost $4, and milk will cost, if you only want to buy milk, sometimes you don't want to send milk because, you know, it might go bad or something. So they can buy milk, and the milk costs 50 cents. And lunchtime will depend on the grade level and at the school. So make sure you check your teacher's schedule at curriculum night, or the teacher will send you some paperwork and some information that first week of school. Teachers always in their newsletter talk about what the general day looks like for their child. You can also go to their website and look at their lunch menu. Now, this is something my daughter loves to do. This year, by the way, every single child will be getting a new 5-digit lunch number. So your child will have a lunch number. And when they're standing in line, they tell the lunch register woman or person, the cashier, their number. And the little ones, of course, are not going to remember their number. So don't worry. They have a list with everyone's names and numbers, so they help them. And teachers also help them with that lunch number. Very often teachers give up their time the first week of school, their own lunch time, to go and help kids in the cafeteria. And depending on where we are with COVID, sometimes the PTSA is asked to come and help with the lunch line and helping students know their lunch number. But that first 2 weeks of school, it's all hands on deck. The principal, everyone's in the lunchroom trying to help the line move along, because the elementary school kids especially don't remember this lunch number. And it's okay, they get it, they'll figure it out as soon as they can. And the lunch cashier really helps. But going back to what I was saying, this is a good site if your child is going to be buying lunch, or if they get a free or reduced lunch and will be eating lunch at school. So my daughter always asked me before the start of the week on Sunday, because I let her buy a lunch once a week. So she wants to know what day of the week she will be able to, what day of the week she wants to eat lunch, depending on what the menu is. So this gives you the menu to see, so you can share that with your child. Usually there's a hot lunch option, and then the other lunch option is a yogurt lunch, which is basically yogurt, some fruit, and maybe some like some type of vegetable on the side. Or they can do a baked potato bar, and both the yogurt lunch and the baked potato bar are, of course, meat-free, meatless entrees. You can also click over here for the digital menu for the lunches, and the digital menu also allows you to break it down. I'm going to show you for Sunset because that's what I show my daughter the most since we're there. And this says 2021-22 menu, but it's actually the 22-23 menu. So we are going to look at September. Okay, let's try going the next week. We'll hopefully have more options. But over here, when you go, you can then click on, you can click on filter allergens. Okay, so let's say you're filtering allergens and you want to know what items have peanuts, because your child has a peanut allergy or a tree nut allergy. You apply, and then it will show you any item. So it doesn't look like there's any peanuts or any tree nuts in any of the meals, purposefully, of course. So let's say we add allergens, we add milk free, okay? And we apply that. Now you can see it crosses out the meals that your child should not be eating if they have a lactose intolerance or any kind of milk restrictions. So it gives you all this information. And so that just helps you with your planning. You can access your PIN number, your family access. I'm not sure when the PIN number will be coming, but it might still be coming up. Let me see, what did it say for when they're going to be assigned it? Let's double check again. So lunch, here we go. So in early August. So I don't, if we don't see it there, let's see if I can give ourselves some time at the end of the period. It should be actually in portfolio. There are a whole bunch of different files. Let me see if I can show you at the end of this presentation. So the person who asked me this question asked me again at the end of the session, and I can try to pull up my family access account for my daughter and share that information with you. Okay, digital menu, we talked about that. Oh, next one. So my school apps. So one of the things about this is for younger kids, especially, they hopefully during EVP, you put your money in myschoolbucks.com, and myschoolbucks.com basically puts money for kids who want to buy a lunch through the course of the year. I'm going to honestly tell you, I just put some money in every year just in case something went wrong and I forgot to pack a lunch or something. I have a backup plan. So this is only if you're not getting, you're not receiving free and reduced lunch as part of the program that, you know, some families may qualify for, having a backup option, but you don't have to. The other thing that parents sometimes do is they can give your child a cash or check. You can drop it off at the front office, and then the front office will give it to the lunch cashier. Okay. Next one. So we talked about lunch. Okay, so water, the question about water. So yes, students should also have a bottle of water. I usually try to have some kind of liquid or water in the lunch bag or something that can attach to the lunch, because they're putting their lunch bag in the cart that's being taken to the cafeteria. So we just want to try to keep it together. And the other thing for my daughters, I usually try to give 2 containers of liquid, one for lunchtime, because if that teacher sends the lunch out earlier, or it takes a while for that container, that lunch, the wagon to come back to class, you just want to make sure that they have a bottle of water at their desk. I mean, there's water fountains in the class, so it's not a big deal. But if you don't want them to use a water fountain, there's also cups over there in the classroom. But if you want them to use their own bottle of water, you know, something small just for lunchtime, and then something more, a little bigger, so that they can have at their desk all the time, so it's not in the lunch wagon. Now, this is something I do with my child, and I recommend it. I usually have a lunch bag with something in, with water that can go in the lunch wagon separately, and then I have a few snacks separately. And the reason being is that if their snack is in the lunch bag, and the lunch bag has already been taken in the wagon to the lunchroom, sometimes the kids don't have access to the snack. Second one, sometimes kids whose snack is in the lunch bag, they open their lunch bag at snack time and they eat their lunch instead. So it just kind of helps remember. The slot for Meet the Teacher is most likely going to be based, sorry, I'm answering this question from chat. How do I know what slot of Meet the Teacher to attend on Monday? It's the email is going to tell you that the Meet the Teacher is either divided based on your alphabet, A through M, you know, N through Z, or it's going to be based on grade level. So they might say first, second, and third grade at this time, fourth through, you know, first, second, kindergarten through second grade at this time, third through fifth grade at this other time. So it's all different. Last year, for example, my daughter's Meet the Teacher was based on grade level. This year, her Meet the Teacher is based on the letter of the alphabet. So it depends on the school, depends on the year. So just check the email. That's why it's important to check the email. How is the lunch process different for parents who deposit money in the lunch account? The kids have money in the lunch account, so they keep on buying lunch. When the lunch account balance drops down, the parents will get an email saying your lunch account balance has dropped down, and that gives you a notification to remind you to put more lunch, to put more money in the account, or to give them a cash or a check. See, there was a question regarding how many kids buy lunch, and I can't answer that fully, mainly because since COVID, it has changed so much. Since lunch was free last year, I feel like a lot more kids were eating lunch at school. I don't have the data for that though, but when I did work at school, I would say it was about 50-50. but 50% of the kids buying lunch, 50% of the kids bringing lunch from home. The first couple of weeks of school, I would strongly recommend, if you can do it, to pack a lunch, because sometimes those lunch lines, the first couple of weeks are really long. So I would recommend packing your lunch the first couple, at least the first week and a half, if you can, just because it makes your child's lunch experience a lot easier. And sometimes hungry children, it's really hard for them. Now, one of the other things I'm going to point out is containers. You have no idea how many times I have worked in the lunchroom supporting the lunch para educators, because there's so many kids with their hands up. So the students have to stay seated, but they open their lunch bag and their parents have put containers that they can't open. So make sure when you're buying your containers, have your child practice. Can they open their lunch containers? The big one is thermoses. Very often parents pack a thermos in the morning and they pack the thermos really, they put hot foods in it and they close it. Well, it's a vacuum and there's a temperature differential because of that. Over time, it makes it really hard to open that thermos. And then your child is at school and the thermos, and even the custodian sometimes has to come over, and it's really hard to open that thermos because it's really, really tightly sealed. So thermos is fine as long as your child can open it, so just keep those things in mind. And also consider, did you pack some kind of a fork or spoon? If you don't, the child will most likely raise their hand and wait for an adult to come to their table and give them a fork or spoon. So make the whole lunch process as seamless as possible by making sure they can open it, they have forks, spoons. So my recommendation is tomorrow, sometime between now and the first day of school, try to practice having them eat lunch, give them their lunch bag and say, go, and see how they do. Because one of the things you're going to note is some kids don't eat unless they're constantly reminded. And so parents get upset and say, oh, my child didn't have enough time to eat, and all of these things. But really, they had time. It's just that they're so distracted. They're sometimes talking, or they put something in their mouth and they're looking all around. So the lunch ladies walk around and check on them. But the first few minutes of lunch, especially the first couple of weeks, it can be lots of stuff going on. So it's a new experience, so make it easy for them. Make sure the lunch name is on the bag and on the bottle, because all of these bags are in the cart, so they know exactly which one is there. So make sure you can show them, sweetie, this is your lunch bag. So when they go to the cart, they can find it. The lunch is also on assigned tables based on teachers, and the teacher will show them exactly. One of the first things they do the first day of school is they go to the lunch table, say, this is your table and this is where you're going to sit. So they kind of give students these previews. They set them up for success as much as possible for lunch. But these are things you can do to help your child through it. Okay, let's see. What time is lunch for kindergarten? Again, that's going to be based on your child's specific school. So check with your child's kindergarten teacher and they'll be able to give that to you. And that's one of the things they'll give you at most likely be able to share with you at your kindergarten parent meeting. Sorry, I'm looking at the question just before I move to the next one. Since I've given you so much information, I want to make sure I've answered all the questions being asked of me. You will not be getting an email with your child's teacher's name. The child's teacher's name will be available in Family Access tomorrow at 4 p.m. When does a snack break take place? So every teacher, kindergarten through 5, will have a different snack time. Sometimes the snack time might vary a little bit based on the day. Just note that on most days there are 2 snack times. Take 2 snacks, and the teacher will say it's a snack time. Then the kids will have a chance to eat snack. And usually it's around 10ish when they have their first snack. Some people want to know what PE is. Yes, thank you so much. PE is physical education. It's your physical education class at school. Thank you so much, Susie, and parent who asked what PE was. So what does dismissal time look like? Students will be given time to pack starting at the end of the day, and then the class lines up. The teacher usually lines them up based on a couple of things, such as are there kids that she needs to walk to the before and after school care system at the school? Are there students whose parents, depending on the way they walk out, are they walking to the bus first or the parent pickup zone first? If it's the parent pickup zone, she might have those kids there so that as she walks out to the parent pickup zone, she can identify the kid and release them to their parents. So it's a very deliberate action. Kids at the end of the day are not like willy-nilly running out of the classroom. The teacher lines them up and then walks that line out, dropping off specific kids. The teachers usually have a list of where or who the child needs to be released to. So if it's to before and after school care, which is the on-school care site, then she'll, those teachers, they're not really daycare, it's a school care program, will accept those kids. If it's to a parent, based on what the parent is listed on that sheet and the information given to her, and what you provided when you enrolled your child, she'll give the child to that parent. If your child is taking the bus, she will then walk to the buses. There are many buses, and all the students' bus numbers are given, and she will have either looked it up or she knows, and then she'll say, okay, you're on bus 2, you're on bus so-and-so, and then, release each kid, sees that they're walking on to the bus and on. So elementary school teachers are very deliberate in the bus pickup after school drop-off system. So many parents were concerned, what if my child gets lost or something? So there's a very deliberate system. The only time that there's a little bit more freedom usually is for 5th graders, and that's usually later on in the day. She'll walk the kids to the buses, she walks them to the parents, but since sometimes 5th graders are allowed to walk home, then those kids might be released to leave her once they get outside the building. Kindergarten families, note that your child on the bus will be seated in the very front of the bus, and kindergarten students, when school starts on Friday next week, those students usually start the whole dismissal process even before, like 10 minutes before everyone else. So they're already outside, they're already on the bus, they've already been released to the parents before the other kids start coming out, just to make it much safer. Bus number, great question. Let me go to the next slide. So transportation. Transportation, right now, if you go to find your bus route, you will be able to find your bus. You're going to use your student's name, which is name, period, last name, and your child's birth date to create an account. If you don't have one already, you can find on this thing the Wednesday drop off and pick up times, which will be different from Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. The address is on there. And so let me show you this information. This is key information that you might want to know. So when I send you the PowerPoint, I'll be sure to include this link separately, just because it's a key link all parents want to know. So you're going to come down, you're going to go to Access eLink. Okay, this is the link. And all the instructions for username and password are right here. Examples are given. So Access eLink. Okay, and then you're going to put your child's first name, period, last name, and this is their birth month, day, and year. Year is a 4-digit number, and then you're going to log in. When you log in, it kind of throws you off because the screen, it's not what you're expecting most likely. So click on Work with Students. Okay, now again, you've clicked on here and you're like, what exactly it is. So when you click on View My Student, you will see their name. Okay, so you'll see their name. So now you click on their name and it's going to give you all of the information about their bus route and all of this information. Okay, so it's going to give you this information, and I'm not going to share it too much because it has my name and address and my telephone number and everything. But what it looks like, I took a screenshot of it. It looks like this. And so it has the address where your child will be getting their bus. So you can find that space between now and for kindergartners next Friday, but for 1st through 5th grade, go and find this location. And sometimes you're going to see groups of kids on the street at different locations. Your location is unique from others, so make sure you know Because for example, in elementary school, at least 3 buses go down my street. And there's another group of kids who are further up the street. So know where your stop is. Your stop is unique. You have a route number. The route number will be listed on here. So know your route number because your child will be going to school and coming home on that route number. That's the route number that your child's teacher has. Okay, so your route number is the one that your teacher has been provided. And so on Tuesday, for students 1st through 5th grade, the teacher has a route number for all the students in their class, and they're going to put your child on the specific route number assigned to you via e-link. So that is your route number. So if you decide you don't want that route number, make sure you're talking to someone in transportation. Go to the transportation website because you're going to be, your child will be put on the route number as assigned unless you make sure you're verifying or changing that. Note, you have a pickup and drop off time. So you're going to drop off your kids. This is for my high school student. Oh, no, this is for my, who is this for? This is for my high school student. Yeah, so this is for my high school student, says Issaquah High. So you will see a different drop off time for when she should be at the bus stop and when she will be at the school. And then over here, it's what time she'll be getting on the bus at the school and what time she'll be getting off the bus when you get home. Okay, so this has a lot of information on it. Usually you might want to just cut it out, print it out so that you have it handy because Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday versus Wednesdays are different. Okay, so keep that in mind. What if the parent wants to drop off the child that first day? That's fine. You don't need to tell anyone, but if you want to pick up your child also that first day, you should email your child's teacher and let them know. We'll talk more about communication regarding transportation in the next few slides. The morning ride is 40 minutes. And so I'm going to say that it depends on the ride and sometimes on the route. So some areas like Preston and some areas are a lot longer, a lot further. You can double check with the bus route people and find out why that is, because I'm going to honestly tell you, for my elementary school child, it is actually a lot faster. So because we don't live too far away. So it depends honestly where you live and where the school is and how many drop-off spots there are. Someone wants me to put the bus route link in the chat. So let me do that so that you see it, but everyone, please don't be distracted and stop listening to the presentation. You might miss something important. Okay, what else? I think I have everything answered in the chat. Snack break takes, physical, bus number, okay. So let's go continuing on down over here on the slideshow. So parents need to let the office or the teacher know if dismissal procedure will change. Students may need a bus pass if taking a different bus or getting off at a different stop. Sometimes they have play dates and whatever reason they might be wanting to go on a different bus. Last year, because of COVID, they could not change buses, period. So make sure you're always communicating this with the teacher because the teacher is going to put your child on the bus that's signed unless you deliberately tell the teacher otherwise, okay? Kindergarten parents need to be at the bus stop or the designated as the adult as listed on that paperwork, kindergarten bus paperwork that you turned in during enrollment. And they need to be at the bus stop. If the designated adult is not at the bus stop, the bus driver will not give that child to that person. Okay, so it needs to be the designated adult. If you haven't done so already, send a little photo to transportation because in the bus drivers have photos of all the kids so they can identify them, because otherwise you know how they're going to identify all of the students. Kindergarten, 1st to 5th grade students, usually they have their photos from the previous years. So if you want to provide that. Also note that starting in October, November, the school district is going to send you something known as the e-link or access to snow e-link. So let's say there's a snow day and you live up a hill and the bus cannot go up that hill. They will give you alternative information on what your bus stop is going to be. and it's a emergency weather or emergency bulletin, okay? Emergency transportation bulletin. So make sure you're looking out for this. So it tells you information on bus routes, especially when there's a problem and there's some kind of emergency going on. There's some information, critical information here. So read that. It'll be going out sometime in October. Okay, another piece of information I'm going to give you, because I'm going to honestly tell you, I broke that rule unknowingly. I didn't know that I had to stay 10 feet away from a bus the first time my child started kindergarten. So the bus drivers like you to be further behind. Sometimes parents try to get on the bus. That's a big no-no. Your child will get off the bus, come down the stairs, and then take a few steps and come to you. They prefer all the parents standing on the sidewalk. And so, don't approach and try to get on the bus for sure. When you're leaving, the bus driver is waiting so that once you collect your child, you cross the street in front of the bus. The big arm is out, preventing cars from going by so you can cross the street. So make sure, and if you're not sure what the bus rules are, check the transportation handbook to see what the rules are for parents as they're doing that. Also, make sure when you get on and you realize, oh no, my child doesn't have a bus route. So if you live within 1 mile of the school, you don't have a bus route. But if you live more than a mile and you're like, I don't think this is right, double check with transportation, because maybe they made a mistake. Maybe you don't have a bus stop, so you can have that question. So what happens when a school bus arrives at school? So in the school bus, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. So when the school bus arrives at school, the kids all stay on the bus if the bus is early. Usually the bus, they try to make sure the bus is there within the 5 or 10 minutes of arrival. And then once they're there, there are usually a whole bunch of teachers out there to help get the kids in. Honestly, in 4th and 5th grade, they line up usually in some area by their teacher, or they line up some assigned spot in front of the school. But in kindergarten, during your your parent meeting next week on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, your teacher will tell you exactly where your child should line up. There's a lineup procedure. It's all about lining up, where your child should line up when they arrive at school. So if they get off the bus, the child will be trained to go to this location very close to the buses and line up there. There's usually a shape or a star, and then the teacher meets them in that line, and then the teacher will escort them into the class when it's time. And so the beginning of the school, usually all the students, the teachers are there with a sign or an area for the students to line up. And so the kids don't run into the building. They all are escorted into the beginning, especially the first couple of months of school. How do I sign up my kindergarten for the bus? You should have already done that during your enrollment process. And you also completed some paperwork or a form during your EVP process, which was between the 8th and the 15th. You had those, 15 to 16 forms. What is the most effective communication with teacher if I want to pick up my child who normally took the bus? I would email the teacher and CC the school office, the office person, whoever's there. It's usually the registrar, but email the teacher and say, today my child will not be riding the bus. I will be picking them up, and I will be at the parent pickup area. So at your school, know where the parent pickup area is. Many schools have like a big car lineup and very clear instructions on how to line up. Sometimes they'll give you your child's name to put in the window. So, and it's a certain code and like color coded. So as the teacher is walking with a class, she can see your car, can see you, she will make eye contact and then let the child come in. And there are many paraprofessionals who are also working to help the child there. Same thing for drop off. There's a big line of cars that you pull over, and then usually the child is helped to get them out, because they're usually seat belted, and onto the sidewalk and into so like directed where to go to their lines. Can brothers be on the same bus if they're on the different grades? Definitely. The younger kid will be asked to sit up front. Usually it's kindergartners up front, then first graders, then second graders on down. So if they want to sit together, most likely the the older child will have to sit up front with the younger child, or vice versa, depends on what's most appropriate at that time. Are we supposed to go with the kids to meet the teacher? Definitely, because meet the teacher, there's no bus. You and your child, you should escort your child to that, to drop off the supplies, meet the teacher, and then leave. There's no transportation for that. There's no plan. It's literally just meet the teacher and leave. And it's for parents and child to meet the teacher. We moved and we need a bus now. And since it's further away, can we still sign up? Make sure if you moved, you should have sent. The most direct way to start this process is you have to have your address updated with the school district. So during your enrollment verification process, you should have made sure that you updated your address. And if you did not to worry, right now, send an email to the school office, and there will be someone, or call them and say which address to send. There's a person to send information to, and it has to come from Family One. Send them your new address and start there. So once they update that information in the system, it has to be updated in the system. Then you can call transportation and say, I moved, here's my new address, I need a bus. But if that is in the system, then that process will start. If you enroll your child to ride the bus and you're not seeing the bus route information, if you live within a mile, you don't have a bus route. And if you're not sure, before I talk to the teacher, I would actually call transportation to find this information. And the transportation person number is again on this website. So if you cannot find your bus route information on this website, call this number. Okay. Yesterday, a parent had an issue and I called this number and I was able to resolve it right away. So please call that number, and the transportation department will will be able to resolve it. So if you live outside a mile, definitely call that number. Okay, I'm going to go to the next one just because I want to make sure we get through our presentation. Okay, transportation, we did that. Homework. So many people were asking about homework. How much homework do kids have, and so forth. In all honesty, in elementary school, in the Issaquah school district, very little to no homework is given. The main thing students are encouraged to do is read. So reading is the main thing. Students are asked to read from anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes, depending on their grade level. Students may, especially at the 3rd to 5th grade level, have homework, but it's not really, I'm going to say real homework in the sense that it is not graded. It is given to students mainly for practice. Students are encouraged to do this to do better. Teachers will go over it in class, but again, it's not graded. It's self-graded by the student to see if they got it, and students who didn't do the homework can kind of go over the right answers and hear the right answers at that time. Students have a lot of supplemental applications on a website that students can access for reinforcement of work. And those are just all accessible by you when school starts, and it's all placed on a portal called Clever. Clever has these apps called Raz Kids and Brain Pop Science and Zern, which does a lot of, it's basically a whole bunch of math, but on an application process. So they can kind of click and answer questions, talks about shapes. It's very grade level based. So based on their grade level, lots of apps. Sometimes a packet might be sent home. It sometimes can be dependent on the teacher. And then you're going to return that packet sometimes at the end of the week on Friday, or the next day. But I'm going to honestly tell you, very rarely do teachers actually give homework. Usually it's practice. It's definitely not for a grade. And the main thing your teacher will tell you is to encourage your child to read. Okay, that's the number one thing. And then they can use the applications that are available for reinforcement and as supplemental information. Now, assessments. Assessments will be given periodically. I'm going to honestly tell you there are at least 3 iReady tests students will take. They're going to take an iReady, which is a diagnostic. A diagnostic is given to determine the level of the child. And that information will determine how the students are working in small groups. So students in certain groups will be placed together, or if students are missing some aspect of that subject area, the teacher knows, oh, these children are not sure about their math facts, so these children need work on phonic awareness of this, so based on their diagnostic, teachers group them in small groups and work with them in either individual or small groups sometime during the course of the day to help them. So that is the purpose of iReady. And they do that 3 times a year, once in the beginning of the year, once sometime in, I think, December, January, and then once again later on to see where they're at. So maybe it's even 3, I thought it was 3 times a year. I think, again, it's given to them in like April, May again. So in kindergarten to 2nd grade, they don't really take real tests in the class for a grade. So they're given some evaluations, but usually teachers go over some stuff in class, and then they might give them like a mini test as they're older, getting in older grades. 3rd through 5th grade, 100%, they're taking, usually it's math test, and usually it is sometimes science test. But it's not really tests. I mean, when I was in India, I used to take tests, and there were, a lot of studying to do and a lot of work. So it was a very stressful time, even in elementary school. In the United States, kindergarten through 5th grade tests, it's very much, teachers will say, students don't need to really study at home at all. We've already reviewed them for everything that they need to know. And same thing for iReady and district assessments. Teachers will tell families that they definitely do not need to study or to cram before the test. It's basically to see what children already know. So again, the concept really is that assessments and these tests are designed to see where the child is and how to best support the child with their learning needs. So it's really not to really place, in most of the tests not for placement, but just to see that. Now, there are placement tests, and those placement tests for the highly capable program, and the school will inform you on what day those placement tests will be given. And you can look for more information on the website about those dates. Mainly the highly capable tests are given at the end or sometime in second grade around February, March, and some tests are also given in kindergarten and 1st grade to identify and for placement for the highly capable program. But in general, the other tests, the iReady, the SBA, the classroom, regular tests are not tests that teachers want parents to kind of have their kids study a lot at home, or try and memorize facts and information. School behavior. So the whole school behavior is very much reinforced and reviewed that first week of school. Walking with hands and feet on their side, no hitting, a space bubble, being quiet, voice level. There's usually, you'll hear voice level 1, 2, 3, 4, or outside voice, inside voice, partner voice, voice levels. All of that is taught. So very often you will hear that at schools, they really emphasize those soft skills, how to behave, how to act in the classroom, how to walk in the hallways, how to line up, how to take turns. All of that is part of the first of the behaviors taught at school very deliberately and reinforced often through the course of the school year. One of the two biggest things that families coming into schools sometimes have misunderstanding or don't realize is that there's no hands. Students need to keep hands and feet to themselves, and there's no kind of physicality in playing on the playground. So if kids are really pulling each other, hugging, kind of rough housing or wrestling or anything, none of that is really usually acceptable. So really, it's even when they play tag, it's usually touch, or it's a lot of rules are placed around it, and some schools won't even allow that because they want to make sure children are not accidentally grabbing, holding, pulling, pushing, or being very physical with each other. And then the same thing with hugging. Sometimes some students always want to hug and touch and everything, so they also discourage that. In your home, when you're doing play groups, you can do that, but some people don't like that, and so it's just better that we try to avoid that, and some children sometimes have complained of other kids hugging them or touching them a lot, even in a friendly way. So it's something to really be aware of, like really no hands to yourself is usually what they say. So just keep that in mind. What is the usual schedule for kindergarten after lunch? So that is, again, a conversation. So that's literally one of the reasons why they have these parent meetings at the kindergarten level. So at the parent meeting next week, talk to your teacher about that, and you can see what the teacher says. In kindergartens, depending on the class, the individuals that year, sometimes teachers are flexible based on that parent meeting, and it's all dependent on that parent meeting. Starting in first grade, of course, there's no napping in classroom, but that is part of the conversation that families should be having with the kindergarten families should be having with their classroom teacher. Is there a school uniform? And the answer is no. Okay, so how can you support your child? So every Friday, for sure, check your child's backpack and make sure that there's no flyers or any paperwork. Very often, they will bring home all the papers, all the handouts, all the little lessons. They did some kind of activity, drawing, completed a worksheet. They'll bring all those home on Friday, and then you can clean out their backpack in that folder. And in that folder, there'll be 2 sections. And the one section is take home and bring back if they have homework, and the other section will be take home and keep at home. Okay, so make sure you take out all the paperwork that is the take home and keep at home, and the take home and bring back might either be a homework assignment or something to do, or a form to fill out for the parent. So check that. That first week of school, very high likelihood that you're going to have some paperwork in there that you need to complete and return back to the school, and that's how you're going to communicate, especially in kindergarten, first and second grade, with the teacher, what the teacher is sending home in the child's folder, and then what you complete, write, and share with the teacher back. Of course, you're also going to email, but that's one of the ways they do it. Label your school supplies when you leave it on your child's desk. Talk to your child about recess and lunch, and kind of help them plan for their day, especially when you go to meet the teacher. You can kind of show them, this is this, show them the lunch cart, if it's probably going to be available there, and how that works. You'll have access to go to the playground, show them what the playground looks like, talk about making sure you walk quietly. The teacher is going to review that with them, so they just know kind of what to expect. Practice with your child how to stay focused. I know that seems, I don't know, some people might like, what? But that is one of the hardest things I experienced as a dean, where so many children really had a hard time staying focused and continuing eating. They would just be so busy staring or so busy talking to other kids. The recess the lunch teacher really tries to encourage them to stay in their seat, and they do a really good job, but just a reminder from you is always a good thing. So review classroom expectations that you know of based on this presentation. At curriculum night, you're going to get a lot more information, so make sure you attend that. Reinforce any expectations the teacher shares with you that first week of school with your child, so they know that, and let your child know the difference in how they behave at school versus at home. That's sometimes difference in how they play at the school playground versus how they might play at a playground in your neighborhood, or what the expectations are, with other friends and families that they work with. What school supplies should we have labeled? Usually it's files, write down their name somewhere. If there's any kind of binder, your backpack, definitely. So what I'm going to do is do this. Give me 1 second. So the school supply list is available at every single school, by the way. Their school supply list is in the same place, and that is our school, academics. So go into academics and go to supply list, and so every single school has the same thing, academics supply list, and then it's divided based on all of the grade levels. So you can see all supplies are communal and will be shared by the class. Oh, this one says do not label any supplies except for backpacks. So all of that information will be posted. So last year, children did not really share supplies, and so they put a lot of their stuff on their desk. So let's see if Sunset has the same kind of rules regarding school supplies, but very often it will be posted. If it's not posted and you're not sure, you don't need to label it, and just you can talk to the teacher about that. So over here, it doesn't say what to label and what to not to label. I wrote my daughter's name on the Crayola pencil and her crayon boxes, the outside boxes. And then when I went to school, I remember for my daughters, there was an area where to leave the tissue box, where to leave the Ziploc bags, the paper wipes, and so forth. And the smaller items like highlighters, expo pens, if it's not in a box, you don't need to label the actual physical pen itself. If it's a marker, like a bigger box, then you can label that. Oh, yes, if you cannot find a specific item, if you find as close as possible, it's okay. Okay, so some schools have the school supplies themselves that they sell. Also for families who might have financial need, there is tools for schools or supplies that the school has in the office, and you can ask for them. So my child is a slow eater. What if she does not finish lunch? So note, if they don't finish lunch, they can leave their food in the lunch bag. When it comes back to them, they have their second snack. So they can then use that snack time to eat their lunch, okay? So there are 3 times during the course of the day that they can eat. So you don't have to pack a big lunch, because they get that snack, they get their lunchtime, they get another snack. So just keep that in mind and what they can eat. And knowing that, make sure that you're giving them meals that are, high in protein or energy, so that can tie them to the next time they eat. So the first couple of days can be a little bit of a trial and error as what meals work the best. Just keep that in mind. Yes, just label the boxes and containers, and then anything small like individual pencils, don't worry about labeling. School supplies. If we bought the school supply box, we don't need to buy an additional supply, right? So if it's from the school district, from the school PTA site, you should be good. And if you can't afford something, don't worry about it. The school will figure it out. Ticonderoga some pencils, yes, that's fine. Okay, so Clever. Okay, so we were talking about Clever earlier. Take a deep breath. There's so much information. Don't worry, you're fine. And if you're now just brain tired, you're like, too much information, I'm going to check out. No worries, okay? Because a lot of this information, some of this information you might also get during curriculum night. What item do you need to put in your backpack? Usually the lunch and water. It's a very big backpack that the student usually just carries lunch and water back and forth every day. The teacher will create a folder for them, and that folder is what their child will be carrying. So honestly, from kindergarten to 3rd or 4th grade, the only thing they have in their backpack is their take-home folder. That the teacher will be creating one labeled with your child's name on it, and their lunch and water. That's like seriously the most critical things to send your child to school on that first day, the first week. And then make sure that the backpack is labeled, the lunch bag is labeled, the water bottles are labeled, and make sure your child's name and grade level is on all of those 3 things. The main things, if you don't do anything else, just do that for your child. Okay, so Clever, the Clever portal is over here. The instructions on how to use Clever. You really will not be using Clever. Your child should know how to use it. But if you're trying to get on one of the apps, then you will be able to get on the apps. Let me see if it's what's in there. Yeah, so it's not available just yet, and it looks like it's not going to be available until the 29th. But when you go on Clever, you will see that it has some teacher information in there, and a lot of different apps on the bottom. And your teacher is going to demonstrate how to use it and how they will be using Clever at curriculum night. So don't worry till then. And if you still have questions about Clever, see us in October. We have a daytime event and an evening event. We can help you answer questions. There are 2 ways to get a login for Clever. One of the things to note is that for Clever, for the parent account, you'll get an email invitation most likely, but I'm going to be honest, my feedback as a parent, I found it very unhelpful. I usually used my child's right there. You can see It is student info, and there's an ID over there. Susie, can you see this? So student info and ID over there. And
Yes.
that, yes, so that is where you're going to find the student ID, but all the instructions are listed over here. So your student information is posted in this family access tab, and you'll be able to find it over there. Okay, and on this page, you also find the child's teacher's name listed, and you just need to go on it on Friday afternoon. But this is what the family access tab will look like on Friday afternoon. It'll have all of this information there. Okay, where am I? Okay, here we go. Directions are on there. It has a lot of sites. Clever is basically a learning management system. It's a one place for kids to go to get information. Otherwise, in many years ago, before we had Clever, it was a nightmare. The teacher would send different applications or different websites to go with a username and a password. It was a piece of paper. I should stick it in my cabinet. So if I wanted my child to do an activity in Zern, I knew what the username and ID. It was just a lot of work. Now everything is in one place, much easier to use. So it's easy. It sounds scary, but don't worry, it'll be fine. Curriculum night, you'll get more information about it. COVID, many people had questions about COVID. So again, same as the end of last year, pretty much. If your child tests positive for COVID, make sure you isolate them at home for 5 days. After 5 days, if they're still testing positive, they should stay for another 5 days. If they are negative and they do not have a fever, then you can they can come back to school and don't have a fever or any symptoms. And that is without medication, then they can come back to school. We recommend that they make sure they're wearing a well-fitted mask. If there is a cluster, and so there are a lot of kids in that class, then the school will, share that information. So it says here, schools will no longer send notifications about individual cases. We'll inform students, families, and staff when there are outbreaks in schools. And beginning September 6th, the district will resume publishing the number of cases at each school. So schools are no longer required to directly notify high-risk students or staff. Another question that came up in the form for when you registered was, how safe are schools? Of course, I'm never going to tell you, oh my gosh, I personally think schools are super safe. Schools, it's even more safe than when I started, than when my kids were going, because right now an adult cannot get into the school unless they're buzzed in by the front office staff. Okay, so when you come in, you have to check in, and only families that have completed their volunteer application and have business in, you cannot willy-nilly go and visit your child's classroom. So you cannot just walk into your child's classroom or a classroom in general. Students are always supervised by adults. Students are released only to the contact person or emergency contact person, depending on the situation, as listed on their family access site. So what you did in EVP was critical, because you wrote down the family one information, and then you're going to be sharing, then you have the emergency contacts to call in case there's an emergency. But the person your child is released to, you also put that information during EVP. Hopefully you remember what names you put in, but that's critical for pickup people. There's no kindergarten uniform, and so that's not part of the supplies. So again, kindergarten list is on the school website. So yes, you can do COVID home tests. There's no requirement to do in a formal, going to the UW Lions or a clinic. You can use COVID home tests for this. Okay, so celebrations. School is a lot of fun, and very often they have many celebrations and exciting days. Like they might have Seahawk days or crazy hair day, or they might on Valentine's Day, they might say Pink Day, or a Harvest Festival Day. In general, those students, find out from the classroom teacher how the teacher acknowledges birthdays. Teachers acknowledge birthdays in different ways, and also at different grade level, how a teacher acknowledges a birthday looks very, very different. In kindergarten, it looks very, very different first grade even compared to fourth and fifth grade. If you're not sure about any expectations at any time, or what to do, for example, for Valentine's Day, please make sure you reach out to the teacher and ask, because we just want to make sure that we're not making any assumptions. For example, I made the assumption that all families knew what PE was. So if that happens, it's okay. Just check in with the teacher and say, hey, you said this, but I have no idea what you meant. Okay, school and classroom celebrations are communicated through the teacher newsletters. It says e-news. It's now, they changed that name, sorry. So e-news is, we don't do that anymore, through the teacher emails or newsletters or through the bulletins, school bulletins. Okay, so school information is communicated through school bulletins, and classroom celebrations and such will be shared through the teacher newsletters. And celebrations are really an opportunity for our children to build community, to have fun. And we are, as a district, trying to have as many culturally and cultural celebrations as possible, okay, to really help our students learn and appreciate our diverse community. Sometimes they'll have days like pajama day or bring a stuffed animals to school day. So, just keep that in mind. Kids love those kinds of days. It makes it really fun. I know my daughter loves pajama days with the idea of waking up. She used to change her clothes before going to school into a different pajama, or taking a stuffed animal and putting it in a backpack. Such a fun thing for her. But, talk to your teacher if you have any concerns. And emailing is the best way to ask and get any response. Getting information from the school. So again, I can't stress the importance of reading your child's weekly newsletter from the teacher, or reading the school's weekly announcement that they send out to families. I usually get my weekly announcement from Sunset on Thursday. So you'll see a pattern. They usually send an email on a specific day. So now I'm just in a habit of noticing that I'm going to get that email that day, and to make sure I scroll down and read all of it. Sometimes the teachers will email you for a specific reason, but emailing the teacher is usually the best way. Remember, when the teacher is working with their child, they cannot really answer the phone, because they're watching your 15 to 20 some children. So phones are usually not the best way. Usually the teacher can only phone before or after school, but email is usually the best way, especially if there's a change in your bus route or something like that, or if your child is sick or something, like, send that information there. For younger kids, sometimes it's even nice to let your teacher know if they had a bad morning or a bad day, just to give them a heads up. That is really important. So we always encourage that communication between family and school, so the teacher has this information. So for example, if my child woke up really late, was really super grumpy and very teary-eyed and didn't want to go to school, and it was really an effort to get her to the school bus, for whatever reason, that day seemed to be a bad day, but I'm going to email the teacher and say, hey, heads up, you might see that. And sometimes she's like, oh, I know you said that, but don't worry, everything is fine. She's wonderful. Yeah, I noticed that, and I'm working with her. And so that just kind of gives them a heads up on how they can help their child, because really you're the partner of the teacher. And so you and she or he need to be communicating to make sure that the child is really having success at school. So communication is key to the academic success and to the emotional well-being of your child. So when to communicate with the teacher? So when your child is going to be absent or late or leave early. So make sure you're emailing the teacher and letting them know that. When your child is absent, though, you also need to send an email to the attendance person in your school, or call and leave a message on the phone. Now you're wondering, well, how do I find that information? So I usually find that information by going to our schools, and there's a tab called attendance, and you'll find the attendance office email and number. Now, as I said, every single school is the same. So let's try Sunny Hills and test it out. So if you go to Sunny Hills, our school, and attendance, and by the way, this information is also accessible on your phone. So you can search up or bookmark. I would actually just gonna make sure you have that there. You'll find the attendance office email and also the telephone number. This is a link, so you can click on it and email directly from your phone. And as I said, I always try to email and CC the classroom teacher, just so they know about it. Also, make sure you're including the name of the student, the teacher, the date of the absence, and the reason for absence. because there are absence and attendance policies, and if you have too many unexcused absences, the school will contact you. If it's at a certain number, they will ask for a meeting, because it's really critical, and it's really for the well-being of your child that we really encourage consistent attendance at school, because we really want to make sure your child is safe and they are getting the most success, academically, socially, and emotionally. So if your child is going to be changing how they will be going home, if there's the regular routine is disturbed for any way, email the teacher. So if they're going to be taking the bus, or this time not taking the bus, so you're going to pick them up. If they're going to go to after school care, not going to after school care. I honestly, I'm going to tell you, I got in trouble, not trouble, but I got a call from the school office a couple of times because I wanted my daughter to take the school bus home and not go to after school care. And I would forget to tell the teacher that. So then the school would have to call, and it's a lot of work, because then the bus really can't leave, because my daughter was trying to get on the bus and the teacher was like, no, no, no. And so they have to make sure that that is right. And so, because they're going to follow the plan, right? They're going to follow the plan, not what the child is saying. So make sure you communicate, because if you tell your child but not the school, it creates problems, miscommunication, and tension and stress, honestly, for your child and for the school because of this miscommunication. If you're concerned about academics, your child is not doing well. If there's some kind of, phonics, or they're just struggling and saying, I can't do it or something, talk to the teacher about it. You don't have to wait for parent-teacher conferences. If there's a social emotional concern, talk to the school counselor or to the teacher. If you find out that there's a problem behavior, like maybe there's a bigger problem, this is, there's some kind of conflict with another class mate. If there's two kids are not getting along and your child is really upset about something, for those reasons, I would email the teacher and CC the principal or the assistant principal, just so that they're all aware and they're addressing this issue, and that, multiple people in the know as to what's going on. The principal and the teachers usually work with students within the classroom to resolve conflicts. But if you feel like this is a bigger issue, please make sure you include the principal or the assistant principal so they can help you and they can work with you towards resolving the situation. School counselors. School counselors are full-time at every elementary school. They are a very important resource for parents and teachers. And when I first started working in this job, many families found it a stigma that their child was going to a counselor. Like, what's wrong with my child? They're going to see a counselor. But there's nothing wrong with your child. All students could use help with social emotional development. Very often the school counselor will also work with your child or a group of children or a classroom if there's any kind of conflicts, because sometimes kids need help in resolving disagreements. They might be great friends one day and the next day they're fighting. And so how do we, keep them going, and how do we help coach them? So really it's a lot of coaching on children and like, this is acceptable. What can you do? Can you take turns? Stuff like that. I love this link that I shared with you earlier because it has the names of all of the counselors on there. And just so you know, if you don't use that lovely link that I shared with you, if you again go to the school's website, if you're looking for your teachers, you're definitely 100% going to have your teacher's name and email address when you go to meet the teacher and curriculum night. But for whatever reason, you can't find it. If you go to the school's website and you go to staff, you will see that I don't see the list. They used to have the list of all the staff, but I don't think they have that anymore. But you can also use this to staff directory to look up staff names most likely. But you will get the teacher's email and number at school. Okay. Other academic programs. So people are asking about the dual language program, which is at Issaquah Valley. It's a Spanish program mainly, and you have teachers teaching them in Spanish and English. It's through an application process, and if you're still interested in it, you can send me an email, or you can fill out the form so that I can have a family partnership liaison contact you. The highly capable program in elementary school, it's the Marlin and Sage program starting in 3rd grade. If you're new to the school district and your child is going to be third, fourth, or fifth grade student, the application deadline for trying to enroll your child in the highly capable program is mid-September. It's usually September 15th, where you have to fill out a form and say you want to have your child tested. In general, every single kid in the second grade class, so if your child is starting second grade, if your child is in first grade, they will be tested in February, March, and based on that test, they will then know if they were accepted into the into the Marlin or SAGE program. The PEP test, PEP test, is also for kindergarten and first grade for a version of the highly capable program. Those students who are struggling with either math or science or literacy needs, some schools, all schools have a Title I program, some bigger than others, and the Title I basically helps students meet literacy needs. Those students who need support in learning English, they have an additional teacher who will support them during class time, and that is the ELL MLL program. And so that is a different program for our students too. We also have a science and math technology magnet program. And if your child is interested in that, at the end of, I believe it's third grade, it's a lottery process. And so you can go to the website and look and see if your child is interested about that. Emails will be sent out January through March, so your child can fill out the application, or you have to attend a meeting and then put your name in the lottery to be part of that program. Okay, so some parents were asking me about the curriculum. So in the school district, we don't really have textbooks. You're going to see a workbook for math on occasion. Some teachers may send it home, not all teachers. Usually the teacher will only send it home after they've completed most of the activities in that book. But one of the big disconnects families from other countries have is they don't have any kind of a lesson book, some kind of workbook or some kind of book that parents can see what the child is doing in English or in math or in science and in other classes. So that is one of the definitely a disconnect a lot of families have in the Issaquah and the American school systems, because most American schools are like that. When I worked in Texas, it was like that. When I worked in Renton, it was like that. So most schools have that. But the teachers will talk to you about what the curriculum looks like on curriculum night. So make sure you attend that. It's a very informative time. Talks about expectations, curriculum, events, opportunities to volunteer, a lot of that. However, even though we don't really have books, we have a very a website that gives you the concepts and what's being taught, and that is also aligned with the Common Core standards. So for example, if a parent asked me about first or second grade curriculum, and so if you go to second grade, you will see, and it will show you what the students will be learning in reading, writing, math, science, social studies, health, and social emotional learning, that's SEL, music, PE, and library. So it gives you kind of their lessons, an overview of what they're going to be doing. It also has a tab to show you what the adopted curriculum is for that section, what they will be doing, learning goals for that subject area. So all of that information. So make sure you look at that. Also, Susie, can you share the link? Because I know some of you probably have young ones who need to go to sleep. So don't worry if you need to leave. It's okay. You can watch the last half of this. I will send it to you. So
Lorna, I
yeah.
actually do not have the link because I
Oh.
didn't get. So if you can actually put it in there, I've been asking them just to email me.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing for 1 second, and
You're still recording,
okay.
but that's
Okay.
okay too.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to do that in a second. I'm sorry. So I'm going to continue sharing, and they can email you. Perfect. Okay, so parent volunteers, elementary school, there are many opportunities to volunteer either through PTA or in the classroom. Curriculum night will give you that information on when and where to volunteer and how to volunteer, what are the volunteer opportunities. Sometimes it's being in the classroom and doing stuff. Sometimes it's helping cut or prepare activities. So during Meet the Teacher or curriculum night, they'll give you that information. In general, we highly encourage families to volunteer or participate in school activities. Students love to see their parents at school, doing stuff around school. PTA, important group to join. They do a lot of work in elementary school, especially. My school has a spooky spaghetti night. Love it. Some schools do gingerbread houses. Some schools do culture nights. Try to engage and attend as many of these activities as possible. It really helps build a sense of community and the important events to attend. School is free, but there might be supplies like the school supplies. If you can't afford, no worries. We have financial assistance. We can provide some school supplies. And if you're free and reduced lunch, talk to the bookkeeper and they can, give you a scholarship, or many of those fees will be reduced or taken away. So parents and guardians are highly encouraged to participate at school. Parent involvement is key to student success. If you don't speak English clearly, fluently, if there's some kind of, if you're hesitant, please request an interpreter at no cost to you, the family. The school takes care of that. Family access during question and answer. I'm going to try to log in and try to see if I can, what I see, if it's open, and so that I can show you what that could look like. But that's where the report cards, attendance information, your iReady, your SBA, your teacher, all of that stuff is on family access. And you can also download the app. Make sure the app is for the Issaquah School District app for family access. And there's a link on the website for that information. If your child has an IEP and had one from preschool, it's going to follow them. If your child has an IEP, which is an individualized education plan, if they are in the special education program, then that IEP from other schools follows them. If your child has asthma, diabetes, and some other, health concerns or needs, you can talk to the school counselor to see if they can qualify for a 504 plan. I can show you the link to the 504 plan on the school district website if you have that question, or I can share more information about 504 plan to you specifically if you send me an email at the end of the presentation. Here are the family liaison contacts. It's in the presentation, and some questions that parents have. Let me actually stop sharing and stop recording. So if I stop recording,